Steel behind black water ahead. Moon on the spears, fear in the breath. Dust like thunder rolling our name. Why did we leave old ghosts, same chain?
A man who is not part of your organization, who does not report to your leadership, and has never attended one of your meetings, shows up at your office, watches you work for a single day, and then says flatly to your face, yeah, the thing that you're doing, it's no good at all. Now, if that happened in most workplaces, you would call security. And if it happened in most churches, you would call the bishop. But Moses, he called it wisdom. And he reorganized the entire governance of Israel based on that advice. Exodus 18 is the most unexpected chapter in the Exodus narrative. There's no miracle, no plagues, no parted seas, no water from rocks, just a father-in-law, cup of tea, and the best management consulting in the history of the world. So welcome back to Come Listen With Me. I'm Ricky Black, aka Elder Eleazar, and this is our Saturday, April 18th reading for week 16 of our final day of reading this week, right? This is our ongoing 2026 Come Follow Me study of the Old Testament. And we are closing out the week in Exodus 18, all 27 verses. This is after the sea, the song, the bitter waters, the manna, the rock, the battles. We get something completely different, right? This is a family reunion, a confession of faith from a non-Israelite priest, and an organizational restructuring that will shape how God's people are governed for the rest of the Old Testament. Now, today's reading raises some questions that do not come up very often in Sunday school. And that is exactly why they're worth, contemplating and considering. So with that, let's come listen together. But before we open our scriptures, a few things to watch for to help us focus and read with intention. All right. So just a couple quick questions. First, as you're reading, pay attention to what is Jethro's relationship with Yahuwah, right? Yahweh. So when he says, now I know that the Lord is greater than all gods, he is discovering, is he discovering this for the first time, or is he confirming something that he already believed? So just watch for the clues that are there. Next, what specific qualities did Jethro say to the appointed leaders need? And these aren't random or from a profile, like what kind of person is Jethro really just describing? And finally, Moses is a prophet who speaks with God face to face, and yet he accepts organizational counsel from his father-in-law without consulting God first. So what does that tell you about revelation and wisdom? All good things to keep in mind. So with that, let's crack open our scriptures and begin. So again, we are going to be reading here in chapter 18 today, and we're going to kick things off. Let's just go through the first 4 verses. When Jethro, the priest of Midian, Moses' father-in-law, heard all that God had done for Moses and for Israel, his people, and that the Lord had brought Israel out of Egypt, then Jethro, Moses' father-in-law, took Zipporah, Moses' wife, after he had sent her back, and her 2 sons, of which the name of the one was Gershom, for he said, I have been an alien in a strange land. And the name of the other was Eleazar, for the God of my father, said he, was mine help and delivered me from the sword of Pharaoh. Okay. So Jethro brings Moses' family to him, right? Zipporah and the 2 boys, they've been in Midian for quite a while, right? Because Moses was dealing with Pharaoh and the plagues and the Exodus. It was a very dangerous time, and it was not a place for him, for his family. And we don't know exactly when or why Moses sent them back, other than, for the protection while things were going on. But the text is spare about it. But the reunion, it's important. It's emotional. Like, Moses has been operating as a national leader for months now. He's carrying the weight of an entire people, and his wife and children have been somewhere else the entire time. So Jethro brings them back. So before the organizational council, before any theology or discussion, there's family being put together again. Family is a priority. And the names of the sons, again, they carry the story too. Gershom means a stranger there. Moses named him during his exile in Midian, when he felt like an outsider everywhere else. And Eleazar, it means my God is my help. And the second son, it's named after God's deliverance from Pharaoh, right? So the two names together are sort of a miniature autobiography. I was a stranger and God helped me. That's Moses' life in just a few words. Continue on verses 5 and 6. And Jethro, Moses' father-in-law, came with his sons and his wife unto Moses into the wilderness, where he encamped on the mount of God. And he said unto Moses, I, thy father-in-law Jethro, am come unto thee, and thy wife and her 2 sons with her. So they're on the mountain of God, right? So this is Horeb, the same mountain where the burning bush was, the same place where Moses struck the rock. So before Sinai becomes the site of the law, it is the site of a family reunion. And the mountain that will thunder with the voice of God first is father-in-law arriving with a daughter and grandchildren, right? So sacred space doesn't have to be solemn before it can be familial. Going to move on to verses 7 and 9 here. And Moses went out to meet his father-in-law and did obeisance and kissed him. And they asked each other their welfare, and they came into the tent. And Moses told his father-in-law all that the Lord had done unto Pharaoh and to the Egyptians for Israel's sake, and all the travail that had come unto them by the way, and how the Lord delivered them. And Jethro rejoiced for all the goodness which the Lord had done to Israel, whom he delivered out of the hand of the Egyptians. So Moses bows to his father-in-law, right? The man who stood before Pharaoh, who raised the rod over the Red Sea and led, 1.5 million, 2 million people through the wilderness. He's bowing in respect to Jethro, right? And this isn't necessarily protocol, right? It's just giving honor. It's a son-in-law greeting the elder of his wife's family with the respect that the relationship demands. And then they sit in the tent, and Moses tells the whole story, all of it, the plagues, the sea, the manna, the rock, the battle. Jethro listens, and he rejoices. All right, verses 10 and 11. And Jethro said, Blessed be the Lord, who hath delivered you out of the hand of the Egyptians, and out of the hand of the Pharaoh, who hath delivered the people from under the hand of the Egyptians. Now I know that the Lord is greater than all gods, for in the thing wherein they dealt proudly, he was above them. All right. So that's Jethro's declaration. Now I know that the Lord is greater than all gods. The traditional reading treats this as conversion. Like Jethro hears the evidence and recognizes, Yahuwah for the first time. But there is another way to read it. See, Jethro is a priest of Midian, and the burning bush happened on his mountain. Now, Doctrine and Covenants is 84, 6 through 13. It places Jethro in the Melchizedek priesthood lineage. So running from Moses backward through Jethro, Caleb, Elihu, and all the way back to Adam. So if Jethro already held the priesthood, then his declaration is not discovery. It's celebration and confirmation, right? Not, I have just learned this, but I've always known this, and now I've seen proof. Hallelujah, right? So the phrase, in the thing wherein they dealt proudly, he was above them, it's a very elegant Hebrew construction, right? The Egyptians prided themselves on their gods, their military, their civilization. And in the precise arena of their pride, Yahuwah defeated them. He turned the river to blood, the Nile they worshipped. He destroyed their chariots, the military technology they boast about, and he killed their firstborn, like the dynastic succession that they built their entire empire on. So God did not compete on a different field. He walked onto Egypt's home court and won pretty handily. All right, let's move on. Let's do Exodus 18:12 here, so verse 12. And Jethro, Moses' father-in-law, took a burnt offering and sacrifices for God. And Aaron came and all the elders of Israel to eat bread with Moses' father-in-law before God. So this is one of the really deeply theologically loaded verses in Exodus. And the text is deliberately ambiguous about its most important detail. See, Jethro took a burnt offering and sacrifices for God. Now, the Hebrew verb lakach can mean to take, to bring, to prepare, or to offer. The text does not say who officiated. We know that Aaron is present, and there are elders present, and they all eat bread together before God. So if Jethro officiated the sacrifice, then a Midianite priest is offering burnt offerings to Jehovah in the Israelite camp, right? In the presence of Aaron and the elders, and nobody objects. If Aaron officiated, then Jethro provided the animal and participated as an honored guest. Either way, this is a shared meal before God between Israelite leaders and a non-Israelite priest. And the boundaries we assume that should be rigid in the text are not rigid in the text. Now, for Latter-day Saints, D&C 84 resolves a lot of the tension here. Because if Jethro holds the Melchizedek priesthood, his authority to offer sacrifice is not anomalous. It's legitimate. And the priesthood predates the Sinai covenant and operates independently of it. So whatever institutional structures emerge out of the mountain a few chapters from now, the priesthood Jethro carries is older than all of them. All right. Let's move on to verses 13 through 16. And it came to pass on the morrow that Moses sat to judge the people, and the people stood by Moses from the morning unto the evening. And when Moses' father-in-law saw all that he did to the people, he said, What is this thing that thou doest to the people? Why sittest thou thyself alone, and all the people stand by thee from morning unto even? And Moses said unto his father-in-law, Because the people come unto me to inquire of God. When they have a matter, they come unto me, and I judge between one and another, and I do make them know the statutes of God and his laws. So Jethro watches Moses work for a single day, and he sees the problem immediately. Like, sometimes we need that. We need an external source to see what we can't. Moses is the sole judge for the entire nation. 1.5 million, 2 million people. So every dispute, every question, every legal matter, it runs through one man from morning until evening. And the people, they stand in line. So Moses sits and adjudicates, and nobody else has the authority to decide anything. Now, Moses' explanation is perfectly reasonable. The people come to me to inquire of God. They need someone who can discern the Lord's will. And I teach them the statutes of the laws. From Moses' perspective, he's doing exactly what God called him to do. The problem is not that the work is wrong. The problem is that the structure is unsustainable. And you sometimes, like I said, you can't see that from the inside. You need someone with fresh eyes who is not caught up in the daily grind to kind of walk in and tell you the truth. And that's where we're about to get to. Let's go on to verses 17 through 18. And Moses' father-in-law said unto him, The thing that thou doest is not good. Thou wilt surely wear away, both thou and this people that is with thee, for this thing is too heavy for thee. Thou art not able to perform it thyself alone. The thing that thou doest is not good. Not, you're not good, not your intentions are wrong. Like the thing, the structure, right? The system that you've got going on. So Jethro, he distinguishes between the person and the process. I think it's actually a pretty important lesson, right? Critique processes and actions, not people. And he is ruthlessly honest about the process, right? You will wear away. You're going to burn out, you and the people. It's not sustainable for anyone. But notice there is a tenderness underneath all the directness, right? Jethro is not trying to diminish Moses. He's trying to save him, right? The thing is too heavy for thee. Too heavy. Same word, kaved. It describes Moses' heavy arms in yesterday's reading about the battle with Amalek, right? So Moses' arms were too heavy to hold up alone. Now his workload is too heavy to carry alone. The case is the same, right? Other people have to share their weight. He needs to have other people help support him, right? Emunah. He needs to have emunah, that they can emunah him, faith that they can support him and the process. They need to share the weight. Okay, let's go to 19 through 21. Hearken now unto my voice. I will give thee counsel, and God shall be with thee. Be thou for the people to Godward, that thou mayest bring the cause unto God. And thou shalt teach them ordinances and laws, and shalt shew them the way wherein they must walk, and the work that they must do. Moreover, thou shalt provide out of all the people able men, such as fear God, men of truth, hating covetousness, and place them such over them, to be rulers of thousands, and rulers of hundreds, rulers of 50s, and rulers of 10. So Jethro's counsel has two parts. First, define Moses' unique role, to be the people's representative before God. Bring the hard cases to the Lord. Teach the statutes. Model the way. You are the prophet. Act like one. Stop doing everyone else's job. The second is to appoint qualified leaders at every level. thousands, hundreds, fifties, tens. It's a layered system that puts decision-making as close to the people as possible. So the small matters end up being held by leaders of tens. The larger matters escalate. Only the genuinely hard cases reach Moses. And the qualifications Jethro specifies are not about talent or education. They're about character. Able men, men who fear God, men of truth, men who hate covetousness, like 4 qualities: competence, reverence, integrity, and incorruptibility. That is the profile. And if you've ever served in a bishopric, a stake presidency, a relief society presidency, an elders quorum presidency, or any leadership calling in the church, that list should sound very, very familiar. And the Restoration's organizational structure is the fruit of this seed. We see it all the way from the top down. I think about my own ministering assignments. I definitely have my sort of calling to go and, be there for my group of 10, if you will. All right, Exodus 22 to 23. And let them judge the people at all seasons, and it shall be that every great matter they shall bring unto thee, but every small matter they shall judge, so shall it be easier for thyself, and they shall bear the burden with thee. If thou shalt do this thing, and God command thee so, then thou shalt be able to endure, and all his people shall also go to their place in peace. So bear the burden with thee. Shared weight. Again, right? This is the same principle from the Amalek battle. The work of God is too large for any one person. The solution is not to work harder. The solution is to distribute the weight among people who are qualified and are willing to carry it. So the prophet leads, the structure serves, and the people go to their place in peace. Now, one more thing from verse 23. Thou shalt do this thing, and God command thee so. So Jethro doesn't claim divine authority for his advice. He offers his counsel with a caveat that God has the final say. This is a man, he knows the difference between good advice and revelation. He knows his place. And he gives the first and defers to the second. That's a kind of epistemic humility, really. I think this is wise, but check with God just in case. It's a model for how counsel ought to function in any organization, including the church. Counsel amongst each other, think, ponder, then pray and ask for guidance from God. All right, let's continue on in verses 24 through 26. And Moses hearkened to the voice of his father-in-law and did all that he said. And Moses chose able men out of all Israel and made them heads over people, rulers of thousands, rulers of hundreds, rulers of fifties, and rulers of tens. And they judged the people at all seasons. The hard causes they brought unto Moses, but every small matter they judged themselves. So Moses listens. He implements, and the text records no hesitation, no negotiation, no consultation with God before acting, right? The greatest prophet in Israel's history just takes organizational advice from his non-Israelite father-in-law, and he puts it into practice immediately. Now, if that doesn't teach you something about humility and the source of wisdom, then not much will, right? So sometimes revelation comes through fire and thunder, and sometimes it comes through a relative who's been watching you burn yourself out and has the courage to say so. So Moses was wise enough to recognize which kind of wisdom this was and to act on it without an ego, right? And honestly, that's leadership. Now, 1827, let's read 27 next here. And Moses let his father-in-law depart, and he went his way into his own land. All right, there we have it, okay. So Moses let his father-in-law finally depart, right? He went his own way into his own land. Just one verse. Jethro leaves. He goes home to Midian. He does not convert. He doesn't join the march. He does not ask for a position in the new organizational structure that he designed. He came, he blessed, he sacrificed, he counseled, and he left. And the text doesn't treat this as a departure, as a loss, or a failure. It treats it as the natural conclusion of a visit from a man who had something to give, and he gave it. And there is grace in a clean exit. See, not every contribution requires permanent membership. Not every act of service requires staying forever. Jethro gave Moses exactly what he needed at exactly the right time. And then he went home. And the chapter ends quietly. No fanfare, no drama, just a man walking back to Midian, having reshaped the governance of God's people over the course of a single conversation with his son-in-law. All right. And that concludes our reading, not only for today, but for the week. And what a week it has been. Seas parting, songs of water's edge, bitter water made sweet, bread from the sky, water from a rock, battle won by Emunah, and now a father-in-law who walks in the desert and fixes the org chart. So here's something I want to leave you with for the weekend, right? 2 questions. First, is there a Jethro in your life? Someone from outside your usual circle, maybe outside your faith or your ward, your church, your professional network, like who sees something that you were too close to see? Like, have you given them permission to say, the thing that thou doest is not good? And if they said it, would you listen the way that Moses did? The second thing is, are you being a Jethro for somebody else? Is there someone in your life who's carrying too much and judging from morning to evening, right? Just wearing away under the weight that was never meant to be of one person, burning the candle at both ends. Maybe the most spiritual thing you could do this week is don't pray harder or study longer. It's just, maybe it's time to go sit down next to someone and say, hey, let me help you carry this. So drop a comment. Tell me which one of these hits harder for you, right? The Jethro you need or the Jethro you could be. Love to hear all about it. And with that, we close out week 16. So Exodus 14 through 18, the crossings, the song, the bitter water, healed, manna, the rock, Emunah, faith is grip, all those things, right? It's all done for the week. And it's been a great week. But tomorrow is Sunday. So take a breath, take the Sabbath, and you take the sacrament. Remember what we read this week, right? The bread is the manna, and the water comes from the rock. And the covenant you are renewing is the same covenant Israel entered when they walked through the Red Sea, their baptism. Now, next week, it's going to be week 17. And we're going to move into Exodus chapters 19 and 20, 24, and 31 through 34. I know it's kind of a weird jump around here. But we're going to that mountain, right? Receiving the 10 Commandments. We're going to enter the covenant at Sinai, and we'll see that pesky golden calf show its face. And it's one of the biggest weeks of the year so far. So make sure you're subscribed to make sure you have notifications on so you don't miss a single day. So come back tomorrow and we'll do our weekly review, complete with a new reading list, study plan, and a new music track to guide your week of scripture study. Now, today's deep dive article is on Jethro, Midianite priesthood, and the Kenite hypothesis, and the question of revelation outside the covenant. It's already live on my Substack right now, and the links are all in the description. So go read it, enjoy it. I'm sure it's going to help you draw so much more out of today's reading. You're going to love it. And with that, see you here tomorrow. As always, I appreciate you all, and thank you for choosing to spend some of your precious time to come listen with me.
Ah.